every single thing that you've allowed me to go through, the good, the bad, the ugly, has created me for such a time as this. Like,
Hey, what's going on, Jazz's blog? This is East Laureen. She's on screen with East Laureen, where we just talk to dope ass individuals about what they got going on, you know? Follow us at Instagram at @TheOnScreenPod. All right, what's going on, y'all? It's another episode of On Screen with East Laureen, and today with me I have none only than Jazz Be Fit, Jazz the Hustler, Jazz everything. How are you doing today?
I'm well, beautiful. How are you doing?
Doing good. I can't complain. Before we get things kicked off, I always like to ask my guests, what's the top 3 songs you got in your rotation right now?
The top 3 songs. Okay, so the very first song right now that I've been listening to is called Scat by Chaz. Chaz is OTR Chaz. He's based out of Baltimore. I really been on his music since we went to Vegas. The other song is that song by Lil Yachty. What he say? I be ballin'. I was geeking. Yeah, that song. I don't know the name of it. Yes. Holster. And then the third song, hold on, let me see. I don't want to get the line, but those are my 2 songs right now. And then my third song I've been listening to a lot of is Project X by Young Nudie. That's crazy. I don't have any R&B. It's just all rap songs. I love some trap music because, like, when I'm doing hair, I need something to keep me awake. I need something to keep me going. Like, so I try to do that upbeat music. But yeah, that's my top 3 right now.
I love that.
Yes.
So you're born in Raleigh, North Carolina,
yes.
Raised in Orlando, Florida.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your upbringing. What was your childhood like?
Yes. So, yes, I was born in Raleigh, and then I wasn't even 2 yet. That's when we moved to Orlando. My parents divorced shortly after, so my mom was actually the person that raised us. You know, my father was in my life, but it was my mom that, you know, took care of us and raised us. So, being in a single parent household is really where my hustle came from. Just watching her grind. She's a news reporter in Orlando. Gail Pascal Brown, Channel 2. Okay, put my mama in there, plug her in. But she is one of the most amazing journalists, has won so many awards just for her work, and just a true definition of a hustler. So, like I said, just watching her, making sure my brother and I were always taken care of, you know, making sure the bills and stuff, the ends were met. Like, her level of faith and her level of hustle is really unmatched. So, you know, she doesn't even understand the half of how just watching her is how I am the woman today is really because of her. So I'm thankful for my upbringing. Like, I used to be upset, like, oh, I wish I was in a 2-parent household, all that. But number one, it's like that doesn't define you. You know what I'm saying? There's people that come from 2-parent households that still don't have it together. So that's not, you know, I don't care what stigma they try to come up with. I'm not going to let that define me. Like, you know, my mom was my mother and my father at times. So, you know, just watching her, like I said, like, she is a bona fide hustler girl. Like, that's where it came from, for real.
I love that. Shout out Mama Jazz.
Shout out to her. Shout her out, for real.
Now, you went on to go to college at the illustrious North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. Come on, Aggie Pride.
Play with it.
And what's next for you?
Stay tuned. We're not going to speak on it, but just know it's going to be great.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank God for that school. I couldn't see if I did it all over again, I would still choose A&T. Seriously.
I said the exact same thing.
I love it.
I said the exact same thing because, like, honestly, going to HBCU, it gives you just a certain amount of, for me, a certain amount of ambition that I just know I wouldn't have gotten from anywhere else. 100%. So if you don't mind, can you speak on, like, your college experience and what even prompted you to decide you want to go to a HBCU?
You know what's so crazy? And I feel so ashamed, but we're going to blame it on the school systems, especially in Florida. I really did not know much about HBCUs. I didn't really know the difference between a PWI and an HBCU. It really wasn't until I had family members, my cousin Diamond specifically, that went to A&T, graduated not once but twice from there. And when I was in undergrad, high school, I wanted to go to UNC Chapel Hill. I wanted to go to their dental school. I was a Tar Heel fan, diehard Tar Heel fan. Like, I'm like, this is a school I want to go to. Okay, I love me some Carolina Blue. I'm like, look, this is where I'm going to school. And I didn't get accepted. I'm not gonna lie. I had the grades, I had the GPA, but I applied late. And one thing about North Carolina schools is they're really big on, funneling in North Carolina residents. So I was like, I know I'm gonna eventually go to dental school there. At least let me become a North Carolina resident. And I was trying to figure out some ways and what schools that would be interesting, for me to go to. And it's so funny because I was at GHO before I was even a freshman in college. My cousin Diamond was like, look, you're 18 now. You got to come to GHO. You got to come to homecoming. And I'm like, all right, I'm coming. So I really went there for homecoming. I was like, yo, this school is lit. Like, I don't know anything about this school. I didn't know about the A&T4. I didn't know about the sit-ins. I didn't know about anything. I applied to the school. It wasn't until orientation that I started learning the history. And I said, well, I love what they stand for. I love what's going on. This is going to be the school for me. So that's really how I got there. My cousin, anytime I've made a major change in life, it's because of her. Like, I can't even say, like, that's like my big sister. So anything she tells me, like, I trust her judgment. So that's how I ended up at A&T. I actually started off, I went in during orientation as a business student, and I switched my major to biology. Because again, I wanted to go to dental school, and so biology was the hardest thing
Biology's a beast. My boyfriend is majoring in biology. I feel for y'all, 100%.
Only people that got us beat, I ain't gonna lie, is the engineers. I'm sorry. I'm not here to judge anybody else's major, but the engineers got us beat by far. But biology was hard. Now, there were some classes that I really enjoyed, like microbiology, ecology, things of that nature. But when it came down to taking physics, organic, biochem, basically shout out to Chegg, because your girl wouldn't have made it through if I didn't have Chegg account, okay? Because that physics was about to take me down. Calculus, they had me taking calc, all types
you
of stuff.
You speaking a foreign language to me right now.
Girl, stuff that didn't even apply to me. I said, I'm not going to be using this in the future, but you know what? I'm going to take it. I'm going to go on and do it. But I literally was like, look, while I was still being a biology student, just like a lot of other college students, I had to work. So I started working in the gym. Like, first I started in the lab. I was in a research lab, and I was like, yo, I hate this. And that's when I really knew that, like, biology was not my passion, but I needed the money. I was an out-of-state student. I had to, I was living off campus because it was cheaper for me. So I didn't have a meal plan. Like, my parents was like, look, we got you there. You got to thug this out. You know what I'm saying? So I was working at Texas Roadhouse. I was doing the research lab. And then I was like, you know what? I'm tired of all of this. And Texas Roadhouse is a story for another day. Like, oh my gosh, I gotta tell that story one day. But Lord have mercy, I had to get up out of there. So I started working in the gym. I really started to find myself, that summer. I think it was like summer of 2016, just loving fitness, getting myself in shape. I was doing Herbalife. I was in a nutrition club. And so when I got back to A&T, I was like, you know what? I wanted to start teaching fitness classes. So I applied to be a fit coach in the campus rec. And then aside from being a fit coach, I also was doing my own side hustle where I was doing something called Survival of the Fittest. And it was actually a body transformation for students on campus through the entire semester. So I was making money not only working in the gym, but also hosting these boot camps that I was teaching, like Monday through Friday, or was it Monday through Friday? It was a couple days out the week. And then I was also teaching workout classes through the campus as well. So it was a lot. Like, that was really my hustle. Yes. And then after that too, I started trying to do locks. So like, that's when locks was first introduced to me. I was dating this boy in college, and he needed his hair done for, a job interview. And I was like, okay, boo, like, I'll do my boo hair. Like, I'm gonna figure this out. And he's showing me, he's telling me how to do it. And I was like, oh, this isn't bad. Like, I actually really like this. And then after that, I just started, any of my friends or anybody I saw that I knew that had locks, I'm like, let me do your hair. Like, I'll do it for free. In college, we didn't have the funds, to be going to the salons. Well, shout out to Black Barbie, because they had them Wednesday blowouts. It was like $20 or $25 for a blowout on Wednesdays. But that was affordable back then, you know what I'm saying? But that's when I started really touching and understanding locks and, started to do locks. It's crazy. Like, I gotta send you some footage, but what it looked like back then and what it like now, I don't even know how I was making money back then. I was doing it for free. I was doing it for free.
You got out the mud, literally, like
literally. I was in my college dorm apartment. Well, my college apartment. I was doing hair in the kitchen, washing hair in our little sink. You know what I'm saying? You got roommates, they got dishes on the sink. I gotta wash these dishes real quick before I can wash your hair. Like, I literally was doing hair for free. From free, I went to $20 or $25, then $35. I think I capped it off at like $55, like max. And that is still crazy to me to think about that process. Like, starting hair was wild.
Nah, that's dope. And like, so with all that going on, it obviously shows like how you've been able to balance so much from like early on and to now to where you have your brands and your passions grow into JazzGotMeTwisted, grow into JazzGotMeTwisted. Do you feel like that moment in your life kind of prepared you for where you are now and 100%. How you're able to juggle so many things?
Yes, because one thing I always felt was that, you know, I wanted my mom to not have to worry about me when I went to school. You know, already having to worry about tuition, you know, books and all that. If I could have money to pay my rent, to pay, you know, my phone bill, my car notes, whatever, like, I wanted to take the load off of her. And so I've always had a by any means necessary mentality when it came down to, you know, me handling my funds and my finances. I'm like, you know what? I know I want to do A, B, C, and D. I have to have money for it. And so all of those things, you know, me wanting to be active on campus, like no matter where I was, I try to figure out, okay, how am I make some money wherever I am? You know what I'm saying? So look, you get on nutrition products, I'll discount your workouts for the semester. Like, then it was like I was triple, double dipping, you know what I'm saying? Like hitting it in that one area. And then, you know, working in the gym, I see people coming in with locks. I do hair if you need your hair done. If get somebody by tomorrow was a person, it was me, okay? So that's what helped push me to, you know, do my thing and juggle everything. And even now, like, I'm still working on work-life balance. When you know you've been in a certain place and you've fallen and you know the bottom's gonna teach you lessons the top can never teach you, especially when it comes to your finances and your faith. Like, but like for a while I was running from the broke Jazz. Like, I never wanted to feel like that. You know what I'm saying? I never wanted to feel like I needed anything really from anybody. You know, I know we all need somebody at some point in time, but finance is such a touchy subject. Like, you'll help somebody and they'll throw it in your face, and that's something I never wanted for myself. Like, I'll exhaust every single method, every single way before I go back and ask my mom. Not saying my mom will hold it against me, but she already had her own obligations. You know what I'm saying? She already had her things that she had to deal with. Is the lighting okay in here? Because my light just went out. Okay, cool. But yeah, that was my main priority, was just trying to make sure that my mom didn't have to worry about me. So whatever it took, that's what I had to do. So yeah.
So like, with having all these passions and all these interests, how was life for you, like post-college, like post-grad? Were you able to jump into all these things and pursue them full time? Like, did you feel like your degree was like, okay, you know, I got this degree, but I have these passions? Did you feel kind of like, you know, torn between the two?
For sure.
Like, navigate life post-college?
It was really before I even graduated that I knew that dentistry was no longer my passion, that entrepreneurship was beginning to take over. And my parents at first were like, well, what you mean? Like, you know, we just spent all this money, like all this other stuff, you done accumulated this debt. Like, girl, what you about to do? And I really, even though because COVID hit right after graduation, you know, in 2020. Although COVID was a very rough time for a lot of people, it gave me my grounding. And I say that because January of 2020, I used to play flag football when I was in college, and I tore my ACL. So I wasn't even in the gym. My mind was like, okay, now my knee is not working. I don't have an ACL. I'm hurt. I could barely walk. I'm on this big old brace. How am I still gonna make money in the fitness industry and I can't even get physical and be in the gym? I'm doing physical therapy. So it was during that time that I had to really sit down post-grad and decide, okay, yeah, you wanna be an entrepreneur, but what are you gonna do? Where are you gonna go from here? Like, what does your business and your funds look like now that COVID is now hit and you're hurt? I'm like, well, my leg is hurt, but my mind ain't hurting. So let's go ahead and get these online workouts going. Let's go ahead and make some more workout plans that I can sell on my website. Let me do some 8-week body transformations where people can work out at home because we're going on lockdown. My mind was working like that. So when we went into complete lockdown, I had already been through physical therapy, but I had been continuing my body transformation challenges, but now it's been online. So it was just like, okay, even though all this stuff is happening, thank God I was able to sit down for a second because it allowed me to think clearer. You know, like I had to fast for a week and figure out what my new plans were going to be moving forward. And so I was just like, okay, let me push these workout plans out. Let me get through all of this. And then by the time May, or was it March, I gotta double check. Whatever a few months came around, I started doing Zoom workouts, right? So I was on Zoom. I think I was charging like, I don't know how much I was charging for the week. And I was like, I was in the living room. I had my laptop or my phone, and I would plan out the circuits, and it was all body weight, or if they have, what's it called, elastic resistance bands, I was doing the workouts. Even water bottles, oh my gosh, I remember I was doing water bottle jugs. You know, people weren't able to leave the house. I was using water bottles to, you know, to help them with the workout. Like, it was crazy. And I was like, yo, if I could just keep this up, I'll be all right. And so that's literally how I was able to make it during COVID and still produce the funds. Thank God I was paying rent in Greensboro. You know, rent back then was what, like $420. Like I was paying like $420 in my college apartment. Thank God. But that's really how I was able to deal with post-grad, like still trying to find the hustle. Then, you know, Forex was popping back then, so I joined the Forex gang and I started signing people up and learning how to trade. So they were giving me residual money, and then I was making money in the market. So even though I wasn't able to physically be anywhere, thank God I had my laptop, and I was still able to be connected to the network that I was able to develop, you know, in college, because that network is how I was able to really keep going and make it post-grad life.
Kind of want to fast forward a little bit to where you are now, currently based in Houston, Texas.
Yes, big Houston.
How'd you end up there?
So again, during COVID, what was that? Was that May? That was May. I got a phone call from my cousin. She was working for Twitter at the time, of course, before everything happened.
Diamond? Was it Diamond?
Yes, it was Diamond.
Come on, Diamond.
Look, Diamond got me at A&T, and Diamond got me to Houston. Let me tell you how. So Diamond called me and was like, you know, Twitter's doing relocation packages. We're going 100% remote. And Diamond had been trying to get to Houston for a minute. Like, she got to tell you that story about Houston. But literally, she wanted to be in Houston. I told my boss, my mentor at the time, I would move to Houston at some point. She's like, you know, you would do very well there. And she was like, you know, we're doing the relocation package and I'm gonna go. And she's like, I want you to come with me. I'm thinking she wanted me to visit. Like, I'm like, yeah, girl, I'll come. Like, I'll visit, I'll go, I'll do whatever. And she called back next day. She's like, I don't think you understood what I meant on the phone the other day. I was like, what did you mean? She's like, I want you to move. Like, let's move together. Let's get an apartment. And I'm like, okay. Again, whenever I'm unsure of a decision, I fast. So I went and I fasted for a week, and I said, all right, God, I know that you open up doors for people, but if this is a door that you want me to go through, I need you to show me. I need a vision, I need a dream, I need a vessel, I need something, because one thing I've learned is I don't want to be outside the will of God. Like, I'm going to take it there for a second. I've been through a lot of things in this life, and the one thing I don't want to be is on the wrong side of the flow of his blessings, because that's when you start losing time. That's when you start to feel behind. That's when you start to feel like you don't know your place in this world. And I didn't want that. So when I fasted and I asked him, like, you know, I really need you to tell me if this is what you want from me. I kid you not. I had just finished teaching one of my Zoom classes, my workout classes. And I get a phone call from my homegirl, Akiva. And Akiva's one of my girls. She also went A&T, Akiva Rooks. Like, she's one of my spiritual sisters. Like, I can talk to her about, you know, things I've experienced, and we could have those prayers, and we could go back and forth and talk about God. And she says, sis, I had a dream about you. And I'm like, girl, what you talking about? Like, what was the dream, sis? Talk to me. Because I'm like, oh. She said, girl, you came up to me in the dream. You had blonde hair and you were crying. And I'm like, what you mean, girl? What, was my hair bad? Like, what's she like, was it bad? What's it about? Like, girl, she's like, girl, you came up to me and you were crying in the dream. I told her in the dream, I knew God would do it. I have a job offer in Texas. I said, wow. I was like, but even before the dream, while I was fasting, I had begun preparing for whatever the answer was going to be. I just knew in my heart it was going to work out, but I wanted the confirmation first. I was getting rid of clothes. I was giving stuff away to the Salvation Army. I was putting stuff on offer up. I was getting rid of tables, chairs, mattresses. I was like, I'm preparing for this move because I don't know where I'm going to be, but I know Greensboro is not the place for me because I feel like I've outgrown it. Like, I was looking for apartments and I was just depressed. Like the prices were horrible. The areas were not good. I'm like, this is not what I want, but I'm going to try to have something in place just in case. But I knew that I didn't want to stay in North Carolina, and I knew I didn't want to go back home to Florida because I felt like I was going to get complacent. I was going to be comfortable. Even when I was injured, I was home for a month, and as soon as I had the ability to walk again, I drove my car back to Florida, like back to North Carolina. I could not stay. Like I knew I wanted more, and I wanted bigger. I wanted more territory. I didn't know what I was going to be doing. I didn't know what this would be later, but I just knew I had to trust God, and that was my confirmation. And I called Diamond. We applied for our apartment. We got approved the next day. You know, they waived all these fees, these app and admin services. They waived all these things because it was COVID. We got a great rate. We had a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, beautiful apartment. And I was like, wow, like we really moving. So I moved that following July. I got here July 20th of 2020. And that's literally how I even got to Houston. Like, that's literally how it happened.
Come on, testimony.
That's a testimony. Like, y'all don't even know the half, bro.
This is kind of going into my next question anyway. You've been able to touch base on it so much. But, like, just the significance of having, like, a faith and a prayer life when it comes on, not even just, like, in entrepreneurship or, like, fitness, but just overall.
Yes.
And I know you have your platform, Pray Girl Pray, where you're able to inspire others on their faith walk journey and stuff like that.
And I need
so
to
can you just speak
there.
a little bit more about that and just, again, like, the pertinence of having, like, a faith life?
It's one thing to hustle. You could hustle all day, right? You know, you could grind all day, but your faith is going to carry you even when things don't look right, feel right, seem right. It's just like having faith, having a prayer life is literally how I've made it here. Like just trusting that I'm trusting that expected end that God has spoken about. You know, I'm trusting that even in my weakness that he'll be able to provide me that strength. I'm trusting even when things are going left, you know, even when things are falling apart, even when I'm broke, even when, you know, my mom, her faith might not be at the highest place, that I can say, God, I trust you, and I know that you're not going to fail me, because every single thing that you've allowed me to go through, the good, the bad, the ugly, has created me for such a time as this. Like, even when I felt like I couldn't help myself, you still use me to help somebody else, which shows that even in my deepest times, you still love me, that I still have a purpose. Like I always say, no matter what the day looks like, even the most imperfect days still have purpose, right? So it's just like that faith, like that driving force, me just trusting. Even, oh my gosh, I remember just before I even started doing hair, stuff was falling apart left and right. And I'm like, what is even happening? Like, you're telling me, and God has given me so many dreams, and it gets deeper than what people know. Like, he sent prophets to me and vessels, and it's just like, I have to hold on to the things that he said, because if it's been spoken, it has to happen. Like, I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. The when and the how is not for me to know, right? It's just up to me to walk through this life, this purpose that I've already been given. Like, I love that our paths are already written. So even when we slip and fall, even when we mess up, like, these are all part of the path. Like, there's nothing that I can do that's gonna take me off of the course that's already been written for me, right? There's nothing that anybody can do to stop a blessing that God already has for me. And I feel like that's what's carried me. Even when people try to, you know, ruin your character or lie on you. What's it, that song, they whisper, conspire, they share their lies, but God has literally still favored me through so many things. And it's just like, if you have helped me get through this situation, I know that this situation is no different than the last, right? If you have shown me that even in my brokenness, that you could still use me to heal somebody else, or to pray for somebody else, like that, there's something bigger on the inside of me. And I just have to allow my gifts to really make room for my mess, to make room for my chaos, to make room for my emotions. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't even trying to preach right now, but it's just like,
no, I'm trying to tell you.
Oh my gosh, they don't even know the half. Like, I thank God that prayer was introduced to me at such a young age, because it was my mom. I remember, oh my gosh, there was one night she put us to sleep, and she was just so tired. She was so down, and I remember going downstairs and seeing my mom just in that position of surrender, like she's down on her knees praying. And I didn't understand that the bending of the knees, the submission, the God I trust you, just her humbling herself and putting aside everything and just being in that state of worship, like it did something to me. And so, anytime I ever felt like I couldn't make it, I find myself in that same position. Like,
Come on now. Don't get emotional. No, take your time. For real, take your time.
Just humbling myself and trusting God. Like,
yeah,
that's the only way I made it. Just my faith. Like, that is the only way that I've been able to make it. And just praying and just allowing him to be that comforter when I needed that. Like, allowing him to be the provider. Like, I asked God, like, God, if you said that you are these things, if you say that you're a healer, if you say that you're a provider, I need you to be that for me right now. And that's literally like why having faith and having a prayer life is so important, because it's like when I feel like I can't go on, I know that even in my imperfections, I serve a perfect God. And I'm gonna wrap it up right there, because girl, I would be toe up on this floor in here laid out, because girl, you wouldn't even know that.
And that passion is so important. And not gonna lie, like I feel like sometimes when we prophesy like this, it's not only that other people need to hear, but that we are reaffirming to ourselves that like, hey, like sometimes like you said, honest in such disbelief that this is really like God has his hand over me. He's literally like
girl, listen. Child, so many of times I remember just sitting there, even starting this business, I was really down. I'm like, everything is falling apart. My Forex team is falling apart. The business as a whole is falling apart. I'm working at this gym here in Houston, and that's the job offer that she was speaking on. It was cool for a minute, but just working in there, that started falling apart. I'm just like, what am I going to do? Like, I was really at a place like, God, what am I going to do? Because I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't figure this out. Like, I need you to look, I need an adult. I need you to step in and tell me what to do, because I'm falling apart right now. Like, and it was just like, girl, you forgot you do hair? And I was like, wow, I did forget I do hair. Sure enough. That's
like, you forgot the talents I gave you? Like, what?
I forgot. Then that's another thing. Like, why is it? It's like we get these talents and we get these gifts, and it's like we literally sometimes have our back against the wall, and that's when we start pulling. It's like everything we need is already on the inside of us, right? And it's like our back gets against the wall, and that's when we're like, oh, I forgot, you know? But that's the one thing I love.
Stuff how other people or how even God sees this sometimes. No. That's really how it is. It's all about perspective.
It's crazy to me, man. It's crazy. Oh, girl, you took me there. That place of remembrance.
I didn't even mean to. I love that you were able to be that transparent about it. Come on now.
Let me toe up on this podcast. Lord have mercy.
For the full episode, follow the On Screen Pod on Instagram. Episode premieres June 11th.